Indeed, another welcome to all of you, our MainOne community, for finding the time in all your busy schedules to join us for our annual gathering today. Nerds Unite 2018, you're very welcome, and thank you very much for coming. I'm thoroughly delighted that you are here, and I guess for some of you who may be joining us for the first time, you would ask, why do we host this gathering? Why do we taking upon ourselves to bring everyone together in this one single venue at the beginning of every year? And the reason we do it is because as leaders and drivers of innovation in Nigeria, we recognize that it is important for us to continue to engage, to share ideas, and to find new ways to collaborate to drive that growth in the adoption of technology. So it is great that if we believe that, we are creating the platform for us to reconnect around ideas. We're connecting individually. This brings a larger segment of our community and ecosystem together to collaborate and have that interchange. This free flow of interchange, we know, is critical to the sustenance, not just of MainOne, but indeed for the entire community. Without the community, we do not exist. Indeed, we do not thrive. So for us, it is not simply about getting your businesses connected to the internet, or making your systems more secure, or hosting your data locally, or distributing content on mobile-first platforms, or connecting hard-to-reach areas with some of our partners who are exhibiting here today. But it's also about the interplay with applications that affect our quality of life, and I am glad that a lot of members from the startup community are here with us in the room today as well. You know, the past 2 years in Nigeria have been challenging, to say the least, with the economic downturn we have had, and it's certainly taking its toll on our community as well. We hope we bottomed up. Even this week, I've received a few calls about new businesses starting up and wanting to engage and have a conversation, and nothing warms my heart better than that. But we need to accelerate, and we really need to dig ourselves out of the no-growth situation that we have found ourselves in the past few years. And I think more critically than ever, realize that if the Nigerian economy is going to grow, then technology must play a part. There's nowhere growth has taken place globally over the past few years where technology has not played an active role, where technology has not resulted in improved productivity, and we simply need more of all that here. So I recognize that everyone who's here this afternoon is here because you share this mission for increased technology adoption in Nigeria, and we certainly hope that the time you spend with us today gets you even more fired up to do that. It's not my job to fire you up. I'm just here to welcome you and thank you, and certainly let you recognize that we appreciate your being here. We have lined up truly thought-provoking speakers and panelists who are going to do the firing up. Our keynote speaker, Nnamdi Oranye, will start. I think his name and heritage makes him one of us. But I doubt that he knows his way to Balogun or Onitsha market. So, but from his name, we certainly accept him as one of us. We're really pleased to have him here with us today. We're pleased to have all of you with us, and we hope that we will continue to work together on the challenge of increasing technology adoption in Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for her once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going straight to the keynote address. And in case I didn't tell you my name is Rufai Oseni. I'm your host for today. A lot of you know me from being on the radio on Inspiration FM. I got talking to this excited man, really excited man. And I saw his passion and his tenacity for the growth and development of Africa. And he tells the African story by telling all of us that there's a lot going on in Africa that we don't even know about. We're not even talking about. And the truth of the matter is we don't tell our own stories. There's a long African ad that just says, except the lion learns how to write, the hunter will always be the victor in the story of the lion and the hunter. Because the hunter will always come back home and tell the story and say, I killed the lion with my bare hands, but I dropped it in the bush. And tell you what, in our national life, we've been telling a lot of stories with animals. Don't ask me what the snake did. Don't ask me what the monkey did. Don't ask me even what the rat did. Don't ask me. Ladies and gentlemen, more importantly, is here to tell the story of Africa and the success and the rise and the re-rise of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Nnamdi Oranye, author of Disrupting Africa, Rise and Rise of African Innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for him. Thank you so much.
Before I get into this slide, I'll throw some numbers. I'm an engineer, I love numbers, is my background. The first one you see there is Africa is set to have the largest working population by 2034. Firstly, put in context, 2034 isn't far away. That's about 15 years. So a kid who's born today will be probably about 15 by 2034, so it's not far. But what this means is about 40% of the working population will be in Africa. The real question we're asking here is, are we ready to be the largest working population on the continent? I travel quite a bit, like I said, I've been to 31% of Africa, and in every country I go to, I can see the impact of Silicon Valley innovators, from Facebook, Uber, WhatsApp. I'm a big fan of WhatsApp, big fan of Uber. I use it all the time. But the reality is they're slowly disrupting industries in our continent and we don't know about it. I'll give you an example. Does anyone remember when WhatsApp launched video calling and calls on WhatsApp? Anyone remember that? It's very subtle. There was no PR, there was no announcement. One day you just woke up and you saw WhatsApp call. When I travel, I don't use international roaming anymore. I just use WhatsApp. I connect to Wi-Fi and make calls. The real question is, what happens to the telco operators, your MTN, your Glows, in South Africa, your Vodacom and Vodafones? What happened to them? We've literally bypassed the infrastructure. They don't make that revenue. When you think about them losing the revenue, what happens to the people they employ? And those conversations are the kind of conversations we start to ask, above and beyond just the technology. And by the way, I'm a very, very big fan of Silicon Valley, but my question is, how do we start to create a response to actually counteract the impact of Silicon Valley on our continent? Another point that came up in speaking to all these innovators is actually surprising. It happened to me I was having a press release with a media company in South Africa. And they asked me, said, Nnamdi, this is very exciting what you've done. You've written books, you've cataloged innovators. Can you give us the top 5 female innovators you featured or talked about? And I kid you not, I couldn't come up with one. Not because I wasn't looking, because I just couldn't find them. It's very hard. When you put this in context, think about the stats I showed you. 1 in 5 would be Nigerian by 2050. Africa will have the largest working population by 2030. If that largest working population are all, half of them are female, as an example, and we're not promoting and talking about them, we have a genuine problem on our hands. We do have a genuine problem on our hands, and I was very pleased when Rufai actually introduced Funke as a powerhouse. We need more of Funkes in the house, and you can see it in the audience here, predominantly male. The question is, where are the females? How are we supporting them as innovators? The saddest story I had was when I was speaking to a female innovator who's launched a product called Sweeps Out. And I was about to interview her, and she's, we're talking and we're organizing a meeting. And at the end of the meeting, she says to me, Nnamdi, tomorrow I'm going to have a baby. I'm having a baby, I'm going to give birth. And I couldn't understand how and why she was talking to me at that time. And the funny thing is, 2 days later, she actually called me up for that interview again. I said, why do our female innovators have to go through this? Why aren't we providing systems in place for them to actually be capable of being mothers and innovators at the same time? Huge challenge for us. The third point that might be of interest is these innovators, you start to see, when you put them together, they can actually form an ecosystem we haven't really thought about. And the more I travel, the more I see the same type of innovators in Nigeria, the same type in Kenya. You go to Egypt, it's the same. And I can't ask myself, why aren't we putting them together to talk? Now I'll give you some slides now on a few innovators. I think if we actually wanted to put them together as a continent, we could and actually become a powerhouse. The first one is called Fuda Mobile. This was started by a doctor, an eye doctor, ophthalmologist. So he used to struggle. He would drive about 4 hours into a rural area to look at someone's eye and say, you've got cataract, and drive 4 hours back. And then he'd tell them, you come to the city, we'll do this operation. They drive 4 hours, and just for a 20-minute operation, take the cataracts out and then drive 4 hours back. And said, why do we have to spend that much time? So he developed an app called Fuda Mobile, where a remote health worker can download this app, literally scan your eye with the app, and they can detect they've got cataracts. But more importantly, after that, they actually then find the nearest doctor and book you in. Operating now in rural South Africa and Swaziland. And what happens if we take this for the mobile, say it's a grandma who's got cataracts, and she wants to go now for the operation, and she's going for the operation, she hasn't got insurance. How is she going to pay for it? She can use micro-insure because she's going to make calls, she's going to send SMSs. On the back of the airtime she's using, micro-insure provides her with free insurance. And there's a company in Ghana called Sproxel, very interesting one. I think they're also here in Nigeria. And what they do is they're able to detect counterfeit drugs. So you scratch on the back, it shows you a number, your SMS. I think most people have seen this. So this grandma, when she's done the operation, she literally can take Sproxel, scratch the device, and she'll be able to tell whether it's genuine counterfeit drugs. And she gets home, she goes home, there's M-Copper, instead of using kerosene now, she can use M-Copper, and then she pays for it using, next, M-Pesa. Just out of curiosity, to put all these together from a customer, from her point of view, how much do you think it cost her? All this. Any guesses? I can tell you. 40 cents a day. That's how much it costs her for all these innovators to get this in place. And by the way, these innovators exist today. And we should just need to put them together as a continent and start to provide genuine services to our African brothers and sisters. So this is very nice. I've talked about all the innovators, but how do we do work? How do we incentivize action? And there are two things I want to talk about here. The first one is the only way we can leapfrog, the only way we can be prepared by 2030 and 2050 is we need to disrupt our industries as it stands today. And the way to disrupt it is we need to figure out how to take our current industries, cannibalize them, use technology, or provide genuine services to our customers. I'll give you a simple example here. MTN, as an example, has over $250 million users on their mobile money base, 250 million. You think of the population, we have 1 billion people on the continent, so they have a quarter of the population. In theory, MTN can provide mobile money services payment services across the continent, and we should be doing that. They're innovators who we can partner with, and I like what MainOne has done here with a few of the innovators. We should start promoting and figuring out ways to cannibalize our industries, because if we don't, someone else will do it for us. Another point we need to do here is we need to collaborate, and collaboration is a very interesting one. Like I said, I speak at quite a number of conferences, and you go to, sometimes I'm at conferences like these ones, IT conferences, and you meet lots of innovators, IT managers, and one of the common themes there is funding. We're struggling for funding. Now go to another conference and you have investors and high net worth individuals sitting in a conference like this saying there aren't enough innovators on the continent. And sometimes I just want to say, you two just sit together and have one conference. We need to collaborate. How do we take an innovator from Nigeria and make it easy for them to move across to Kenya to invest or set up? They have significant challenges. Most innovators have to figure out how to get a visa. If they want to travel to Kenya or to South Africa, they have to go to Europe, by the way, to come down. It's a very bizarre setup for me. Why do you have to go to Europe to come down? So there are all these infrastructures around these innovators that we need to start thinking about. That's not just about the technology, it's more about the collaborative environment we need to create for them. And the truth is, the people who are going to help do that are you guys. You can't be just the innovators, the tech guys. Those who are in the corporate space can start to think of ways to support innovation and how to help them accelerate. And the question is, why is this all relevant? Like I've said, I hope I've laid a landscape of what we need to start thinking about. Why is it relevant? And I'll give you 2 or 3 more innovators on innovation that I've come across that we think, when you start to think beyond the tech themselves, they can actually see what we can start to do as a continent. And the first one is called Jumo. So financial services is a very difficult one across the continent. There are a lot of regulators, even including the central bank here, that's trying to drive financial inclusion. If you don't have the ability to pay and transact, you actually will struggle as a continent. So most companies and most countries rather in the regulatory space are trying to drive financial inclusion. The problem is most of these the financially excluded don't have the necessary information that would allow, say, banks to provide credit to them. So what Jumo has done is saying, we've created an app. We see you buy airtime every Friday, 100 rands worth of airtime. We see you spend at this place using mobile money or whatever transactions you use. We see you save, even if it's microloans. And they take all that information together and create a credit history for the lower end. Give a credit history. And then when you are ready and you feel like you've got enough collateral to get a banking loan, you take that credit history to the bank and they'll provide you with financial services on the back of that. Happening now in Kenya, happening in South Africa, I think in Tanzania as well. Just an example. The second one you guys would know, Tizeti, and I'll put it here just to illustrate a point. So MainOne's partnered with Tizeti and Facebook to provide wireless coverage in Nigeria, at least in Lagos. Right? And this for me is a very interesting one on how we should work and partner. I think they've got to stand out here. This is an interesting one how we should partner. How do we provide data coverage to the Nigerian citizens? This is an example of doing that. The reason I actually put this one up is the large Silicon Valley players are trying to figure this out. How do we provide internet coverage across the continent? How do we provide free internet, either using balloons or satellites and the likes? And the third one I'm going to talk about will actually tie into this. There was, when I had my radio show in South Africa, 2015-ish, Facebook announced they were partnering with Eutelsat, which are the satellite providers that provide DSTV, to provide free internet coverage across the continent. And I was very excited. I thought it was one of the best things. In fact, I had the CEO on the show to talk about this disruption. I was very excited by it. But then I started to reflect a bit after the interview and I said, when you think about it, Facebook owns WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is able to provide free calls. And when you have free internet coverage, and you've literally bypassed the telco providers, what happens to the telecommunications industry? It literally disappears like that. But we're not talking about it. And by the way, the only reason it hasn't launched is because in 2016, when they were about to launch a satellite, it exploded. That's the only reason, right? So I talk about it because we actually have our innovators doing the same thing, but we're not supporting them at the same level. And it's worth us understanding this. Next slide. And I take it from big fan like yourself, Silicon Valley, but when you think about them as competition, it starts to show you the industries that are potentially going to be cannibalized. And the only way for us to respond is through technology. And I'll give you a few examples here. Has anyone ever called the call centers for these 4 companies? Anyone call the call center for Google, Amazon, Facebook, Uber? Anyone? There's 1 at the back, 2 at the back. How many, 4, 5, 6. How many people have called their bank's call centers? Wow, look at that. All right. How many people have ever called the call center for WhatsApp? No one has. Has everyone experienced WhatsApp being down? Yeah, a few people. It actually happened 3 times last year, and about 2 or 3 years ago it happened once in December for about 30 minutes. And in that time frame, that 30 minutes, I was monitoring the news, and there were lots of articles written, WhatsApp is down, blah, blah, for 30 minutes. Literally, the entire world went ballistic over a communications tool. But when our banking app goes down, well, we're fine. It's our money. But we're fine with the banking app going down. It's very bizarre. The question is then, how can we create the same infrastructure that is equivalent to this? We should be thinking about that. That your banking app must never be down. Your internet banking must never be down. They've shown us how to do it. Another example, has anyone used Truecaller? Anyone know Truecaller? A few people? Okay, people know Truecaller, that's very good. So for those who don't know, Truecaller is an app that you can use to block out spammers. So the telemarketing people they detect you and they block you out. In South Africa, I don't know if it's the same here, when I use my Truecaller app, my bank is blocked. My telco provider is blocked. They come up as spam. When I get updates, when I transact, the SMS comes as spam. And I ask myself, how is it possible that a small company in Europe, a startup, is able to block a Pan-African bank as spam? And we haven't responded. And when you actually dig deep and look at Truecaller's strategy, and it's very clever, is literally they're going to remove all the call center contacts from a customer, or those who have the app, and only provide you with social media access to contact you. And what happens to the bank when they're calling you up to talk about your loan? What happens to the telco operators? You're not in the game. Not in the game. And this is happening today. And the reason I say this is this disruption is coming. And when you put the type of disruption that's coming, and you put the reality that we don't have time, I have only 15 years to do this, the only people who can resolve it is us as a continent. And this is why I speak at conferences, this is why I talk, that I'm hoping that as we start to go through the day and we try and talk about how to disrupt Africa, they've actually come up with solutions. Now I'll go to the next slide. And people ask me, so why are you doing this, Nnamdi? What's your vision? What are you trying to do? It's exactly this. But we need to leave a legacy of African innovation. And I'll explain to you what this means. It's a very important slide. In my second book, I wrote Taking on Silicon Valley. It actually started when I was on a trip to Kenya. And I was wondering, so I have a kid now, and they're 15, and they're in primary school or high school, and they're studying information technology. And they're reading a book. I say, what are they going to be reading about in that book? what technologies would they be reading about? Most likely, they'll be reading about Silicon Valley, Facebook, WhatsApp, Uber, Amazon. Ask myself, what about African innovators? Are they going to be featured in that book? That would be very sad if none of the African innovators, some of them who are in this room, are not featured in that book. It would be a big problem if they're not. And that part of leaving a legacy is to try and figure out ways, so myself and my team, we're trying to figure out ways to make sure that the kid who's born today in 10, 15 years' time has an opportunity to see and understand African innovators, some of them in this room. And I'll give you one example of one of the projects my team and I are working on. So Google Books, very, very impressive tool, and if you don't, please go look at it. So what Google has done, so Google was formed sort of 1999, 2000. So what they've done literally is from the 1800s to about 2000, they've digitized all the books they can find in the world and put it on what they call Google Books. So you can search for a term, you're searching for African innovation, you go in there and it'll show you graphs of all the books written around African innovation. So we're using this tool in our team. And I'll show you what we did. So we did a search on Google, African innovation, and you can look at the graph. So nothing from 1800s clearly to about 1960. And then after 1960, there's a massive spike. And we think that's because that's the time most countries got independence, became independent, 1960, about 1980 dropped, and then back again to 2000. So there's a spike there. And then we tried to overlay this, the same thing with the Africa Rising narrative. Everyone talks about Africa Rising. We're talking about it. And so I had some disturbing points here. In 1800, there was a lot of talk around Africa Rising. But when you read it, so if you look at the bottom here, when you click on that, it'll take you to the articles. Most of those articles are around colonization of Africa and the likes. It's a bit of a problem. But more importantly, the same spike we see in 1960, and it starts to drop up to 2000. So we're not really rising. It drops in there. So just go back to the other slide. It actually drops there, and this is a very important one. So if you go back to the point I was talking about, what would this kid be reading in 2030? We actually don't have enough books in theory, or not enough books talking about Africa Rising here. And what they've done is, from pre-2000, because Google now has access to other books on Amazon, the likes. So if you click on this tab, and anyone, I actually highly encourage everyone to do this. When you click on the tab that says pre-2000, it takes you through to all the books that have been written about, say, Africa Rising or African innovation, or whatever topic you're looking at. So what we did, we click on Africa Innovation, and this is what pops up. My book, #1. And I remember looking at this last year, and I was so excited, but for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes excited, I became very sad. And I asked myself, how is it possible that me, just a random engineer who wrote a book, pops up as #1 from 2000 to now as the top book on African innovation? How is that possible? The other books that pop up as scholarly articles, not really books about African innovators. And I've been monitoring this, trying to figure out, can anyone else write a book about African innovators to make me #2? In fact, I'll be very excited and happy the day I look at this and my book is #2, because it means at least there are more people talking, writing about African innovation. And there's more stuff we could talk about, but I'll leave you with a quote from one of my favorite speakers. And this is from a speaker called Henry Thoreau. It's very exciting. It says, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with his success unexpected in common hours. And I try to paraphrase this, and I say to us, if as a generation we're bold enough to disrupt Africa, if as a generation we're bold enough to move forward, we will leave a legacy of African innovation for the next generation to come. With that, let's disrupt Africa. Thank you very much.